What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. Today we are covering Danny Boyle's long-anticipated sequel to 28 Days Later, 28 years later. This is a zombie film that a lot of people have had in their wheelhouse, in their anticipation for many, many years. It's been almost 25 years since the first movie. So this has been something that we've been looking forward to talk about. Sean and I really like the original. We like 28 Weeks. We're very excited to talk about it today. I'll be one of your hosts. My name is Zach Miller. And I'm also here with Sean Villa.
What's up, everybody? Zombie Day.
Zombie Day. All right. We're here. And Sean, we're going to go into first thoughts on the movie. Mm-hmm. I think for a sequel, it's a very good film. It's a very good film. I think it's something that people need to visit a little bit more than the classic blockbuster. Danny Boyle has definitely been a soft spot for me too in filmography from directors. I don't know about you, but he's done movies like Trainspotting. He's done Steve Jobs, 127 Hours. He won a couple of Oscars for Slumdog Millionaire. So he's been around the industry for a long time. He's had a lot of success. I was really excited to see him return to this, and then with Alex Garland back in the writing chair too. But for you, how important was this sequel after seeing the first movie? And then how did you think that this would rebound after 28 weeks later?
Yeah, so I'm also so stoked that Danny Boyle and Garland are back together on this. I think their creative minds for 28 Days made one of, if not the best zombie movies ever. Every single piece of zombie media that's come out since 28 Days Later has been based on 28 Days Later. And that goes from, the most niche zombie thing to The Walking Dead, which like almost steals the opening from that film. I'm hugely partial on Alex Garland specifically. He's been making a lot of movies in recent years that I'm like all about. Civil War I thought was great. Warfare I thought was great. But I got to say, Ex Machina and Annihilation are two of my favorite sci-fi films ever. I think the guy's just a great writer. And to have him back here with Danny Boyle's direction, I think, especially Boyle's direction, is maybe the best part of this movie. I think what this guy's doing with the camera, or the phone in this case, which I'm sure we can talk about, it's pretty excellent stuff. I love this on a technical level. Yeah. And you know what, man? I think it's a pretty damn good film. I really like this movie. I don't think it's 28 Days Later. I don't think anything could be 28 Days Later. If they came into this and tried to change the zombie genre as much as 28 Days, I don't think it would have happened. Yeah. And I think that they hit a nice little middle ground of like doing enough new stuff that's cool without like disrespecting the legacy of what these movies are, and then giving us a story that felt very personal. So I like it.
I thought that they had, like when the trailer came out, it has a great cast. It has Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Jodie Comer, Ray Fiennes. A lot of great roles in this movie. The trailer hooked so many people. It hooked me, and I had been seeing it for months and months because it was early advertised. Yeah. About probably like 6 months or 8 months before the release. But, it's just a staple in the horror genre for a lot of people who watch movies. So this was something that everybody was looking forward to. But I really, like you were saying, the use of the iPhone in this movie was just something that Danny wanted to do with returning to indie and that kind of thing, and working on a budget and knowing how to spend his money. I think he really wanted to, use iPhones because it does shoot high quality. It does shoot exactly what he wants, while he can also spend money elsewhere in the production for his more important things. Yeah. So I thought it was really cool. And at the time of 28 Days Later, they were one of the only films that were daring to even shoot on camcorder or digital, for that matter. At that point, there was only Star Wars that was really dipping into, like Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. They were dipping into digital. And this was such a new, very primitive area that had not been touched really at all. And Lucas was kind of pioneering it. But this was 28 Days Later was shot on a digital camcorder that was a Canon XL1. And that was like a retail camera that anybody could have gotten in the stores.
Yeah, let me ask you, because I think with the first film, being that it looks like it was shot on a refrigerator, like I feel like that would typically, make the movie worse. I think it adds so much to that original film, the like shittiness of it. It makes it feel like it has such a distinct tone. Do you think that the iPhone gimmick in this movie kind of has like a similar effect of like it's almost it doesn't look as like I guess movie. I don't really know like the
Mm.
correct word to use, but it definitely has a distinct look about it. And do you think like that kind of elevates it in the same way that the old one did?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it does, but for its own story in a way. I think there's something a little bit more ethereal about this story and with the plot line too,
Hmm.
and the passage of death and the amount of time that has passed and how society is trying to move on for this. And then just later on in the film with when Ray Fiennes comes into it, there's like a very post-mortem like just commentary or just like how you deal with grief and moving on, and almost this like soulful approach. And there's like a lot of blurriness in the camera,
Right.
there's a lot of like haziness.
It's dreamy.
Yeah, it's very dreamy in the like a nightmarish way,
Yeah,
and then
for
there's
sure.
there's also the infrared camera where it's red, then the nightmare
Mhm.
sequences. So I saw the DP talk about just how that was like just another technique they wanted to use infrared for the nighttime, and that really scared the shit out of me at some
Yeah.
point. Like that, I thought that was some of the coolest stuff. But yeah, I think that the camera work, like they didn't just shoot on iPhones, they had camera cinema lenses too.
Right.
But I do think that they used it properly, where it didn't feel like it was just a plain clean like Apple movie for that matter. Like it
Mhm.
just felt like something still stylistic.
Yeah.
And then Danny's editing too, I mean, just completely complements the action
True.
too.
It's got some wild editing. It also has a great score, I think. There's some
Mm.
like real freaky music under a lot of these shots. The sequence that I think you had also mentioned in your review that I loved as well was the intercutting between like old Scottish footage
Yeah.
and as they're going to like march off to war, and then our main characters are marching off into this like first hunt when they first go out into the outside world. The editing there I think is incredible. I
Mhm.
think that whole sequence is like really, really cool. But yeah, man, I think overall, the technical aspects of this movie are very fascinating. Like, I think it's intriguing to look at, it's intriguing to listen to. It's like cut in a strange way. And all of it, I think, elevates the film. I think like this is a movie that you go into and you can kind of, you can like tell that there was a director with a vision behind it.
Mhm.
And sometimes you go to a movie and it just feels like it could have been directed by anybody. This doesn't feel that way, which does worry me for the sequel, which is coming out in January, because that's not directed by Danny Boyle. So I worry that a lot of the appeal of the style of this one won't carry into that. But I don't want to get too far off track. Let's talk about this movie. What do
Yeah.
you think? So I have so much to say about the story, but I think that before we break into that, as I was saying, the 28 Days Later franchise has kind of done a number for zombies in general,
Mm.
and this movie does some like pretty weird, cool shit with zombies too. So what do you think about like I guess I'll call them the variants of zombies here?
Like the alphas,
Yeah,
the big ones is
right.
what you're
So
talking about? Yeah.
we have an alpha zombie. We have a weird, bloated, crawling little guy that eats
Oh, yeah.
worms. We have, well, I guess spoiler warning. I'm gonna break into it here. We got a pregnant zombie.
Mhm.
That's pretty wild. They do some
Yeah.
cool stuff with like different kinds of zombies
Yeah.
that I don't really think I've seen before. But they sort of make sense for like what the world is building to. It's been
Mhm.
28 years. How are these things surviving? It's like, yeah, they're hunting deer. They travel in packs. Some of
Yeah.
them are getting like really fat and stealthy, and they crawl around the ground and eat bugs for
Mhm.
nutrients. It's like that's cool. That's really cool world
Mhm.
building. Like that they're not just like mindless, kind of like wandering around until they see something to attack. It's like no, they have to survive like people. And I think that the thematic connection that builds and the world building, it's one of my favorite parts of this. I think it's really intriguing to me. So I wanted to know like what you thought about that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I really liked what you're saying with the evolution of just how the zombies have came to be. The alphas kind of have this like hyper sensitive awareness, and they can almost on command like release the rest. Like there was the one
Mhm.
guy standing on the hill, and then he kind of yells in the air, and then the rest kind of swarmed and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The bloaters were really interesting. I thought they were pretty funny. But they, it was cool how everything kind of had a specific trait, like you were talking about with the insects in the ground, and then you had the alphas, which are just kind of like super strength. Also, everything online, that of course for major audiences is the fact that this is not just 28 years later, it's 28 inches later based off of what we've been seeing in the movie.
Well, you know what's so funny about that? So the main character of this film is a child actor. So obviously you can't have men running around with their naked penis out. So these are prosthetic penises. Why
are they?
Yeah. Why did he make them that big, dude? That's a little strange. Why do you do that?
I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, dude, if I see a dude that big coming at me with
I guess it adds
a garden hose just swinging around like that, I'm just dead. I'm done. That's it. Like he's pulling my spine out. That's it for me.
Yeah, if you want to see a zombie just absolutely packing, this is the movie for you because it's strangely distracting, but it does add to the horror, I guess.
It does. I mean, it does because he's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. It's menacing. I mean, the guy's just bulldozing anything in his path. I do not that I not that I prefer them being like unclothed or anything, but it makes sense that it's 28 years their clothing would have deteriorated.
Right. Yeah. They don't need them.
It does make sense with the world that they were building. But yeah, the alpha guy was a big. I think that landed for a lot of people just how crazy that was for all the sequences. I did too.
I do like it, and I think all the sequences with the alpha, especially. So I guess if we kind of want to get into the structure of this movie, this is a really like clear 3-act movie for me. Of Act 1 being with Spike and Aaron Taylor Johnson, Act 2 being with Spike and Jodie Comer's character, his mother, and then Act 3 kind of being when they meet up with. All right, so is it Ray Fiennes?
Rafe.
I feel like everybody keeps saying different ways to pronounce this poor man's name. Great actor, you know who I'm talking about. But that he kind of takes up the third act as the doctor, right? So Act 1 might be my favorite act.
That's my favorite act too.
Yeah, I think the father-son bonding going out to hunt thing is really cool because we're introduced to the world at the same time as our main character. That's always good, like good writing and good way to introduce all these like new themes to us. Aaron Taylor Johnson's such a great actor, and he does a really good job here. And so does this young lad, who I don't think has really been in anything, but he does a great job here. I'm glad that he's going to be like leading the franchise going forward.
Yeah.
They both have very dynamic characters. They play off each other well, and the just like initial tension of just being like hunter to hunted in the woods is, I mean, it's not wholly original, but it's really good. It's executed really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about those first, like, I guess it's the first like hour almost.
Yeah. The first hour had me really hooked. I really think that Aaron fits into this mold super well. He's got the disheveled beard. He's got that intensity to him anyways. I remember in like Bullet Train, where he was just a pretty like menacing hitman too. You know, he was just kind of intense. He had that tenacity. Like a lot of people have been talking about him as a potential Bond because he can be super charming and then also equally as intense. So I liked how his character was just super savvy. He's a bruiser, you know, if he runs into anything in the wild, he's most likely going to take it out. And I also liked how he's unlikable too at a certain point. By the end of the first act, there's that spoiler where he's been having the affair on Jodie Comer. So I really liked how his philosophy was protecting his family, but also he's going behind their back, and just the idea that he's like one of the community's tent poles, and then he's also doubling back on his own morals and that kind of thing, and that is still like a possibility in a society, even though it's about survival. And I really liked the setup of the village. I thought the idea of the tide coming in and protecting themselves on the island was a really smart idea.
Dude, talk about like the best place to be in this apocalypse. Like Alex Garland really locked in and was like, what is the absolute best human settlement possible for this world? And like, dude, you can't come up with anything better. That's as safe as it gets. Really great location, looks cool. There's that sequence near the end of Act 1 where the alpha is chasing them across the water. Yeah. Gorgeous. I mean, what a great scene. So intense, scary, looks beautiful, awesome sound design, all the shit with the crows. I got pumped up on that scene. I was really, really happy with that. Yeah. And yeah, I agree with you. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson does a great job here. It's a little upsetting that he's not here for longer. But I think that they are kind of leaving some space where he'll return for the sequel. I'm excited to see more of him. I like him a lot.
Yeah. So you think that he'll be in... Do you think he'll be in... Oh, also something that we need to talk about at some point is that there's going to be 2 more parts to this movie
Right.
in the next couple of years. Do you think that he will be a recurring character in the next movie, given we won't talk about the full ending yet, but Spike's fate? Do you think that that where we last left him, he's going to leave the village and look for Spike?
Yeah, for sure. I think
Okay.
I'm not totally sure what the second film's going to entail, and I don't want to dive too deep into it yet with Jimmy, who I'm eager to talk about, but I'm gonna bite my tongue for now until we get there. I do think that he'll be reoccurring, and I also think that they've already shot the second part, and I'm pretty sure it's releasing in January. I think it's coming like right around the corner. So I would think if they had everybody on set, Aaron Taylor Johnson made a comeback. I don't know how much is confirmed, how much isn't. I didn't want to read too much on it other than that it's happening. But yeah, I like his character. I'm eager to see more. I hope they do more with him. Anyway, then we have Spike kind of leaving the village. He sets out once again, and this time with a different parental figure, that being Jodie Comer's character. I don't remember her name, but Spike's mother is who she's playing. Yeah, if you can give me a quick Google on that. This is another, I think, like great sequence or great second act. It's most of the movie is Spike kind of having to be, I guess, the man of the group and take his mother out into this world that he barely understands in search of a doctor who can help figure out what's going on with her. Pretty simple, which I think I really appreciate about this movie is that a lot of the like driving forces behind this movie are very easy to grasp. It's like sick mom, got to get her a doctor, or my son's got to grow up. I'm going to bring him out here, and he's going to get his first kill. Very easy concepts, but what they do with them is really enticing to me, and I think they build a lot of great sequences out of those very simple ideas. Similar thing here. I think it's a great opportunity when we introduce Eric, who is the I think Swedish Coast Guard guy.
Oh yeah.
Who comes up on the shore. He gets stranded. He pops in with this little duo for a little bit, and we get some world building, which was super exciting. I didn't think we were gonna get any like outside world building, but I love that we got it, and that we know that the outside world has progressed. It's the modern day. I guess it's like 2030 or something if we're tracking the timeline. But yeah, he has an iPhone. The whole rest of the world is fine. It's just the UK that's infected. I love that world building. And that really feels true to what Garland and Boyle were doing in 28 Days, where that movie feels so British. It feels like it's a very British movie and that it's kind of baked with British politics in mind.
Yeah.
And I felt that again here. I felt like it was something about the UK and like isolationism. You have all that old footage of their like history. I like the threads that they're pulling at with that. But overall, I think the second act is also really strong.
Yeah, I liked how, like you're saying, they keep it contained to the UK. There was some questions that I had after 28 weeks later, because there's that cliffhanger where the infected go into France.
Yeah, and they kind of retcon it.
Yeah, and they definitely like completely threw it out. They're like, oh, they got pushed back into Europe, and like now it's really just in England and that kind of thing. So I get it. But I thought that was interesting that they are bringing in other parts of the world. They're bringing in that modernity with the iPhone, and they're just he's exchanging pictures about his girlfriend and that kind of thing. And I thought that was good to like break the adrenaline rush that was like it was on a train ride of just pure adrenaline for a little bit, and then we get a little comic relief. Also, his whole unit gets taken out by the infected and they go in the tunnels. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. You have a little bit more world building that the rest of the world is keeping an eye on England in that kind of way, but they're not really rescuing anyone, which I thought was probably to prevent more spreading in that kind of sense. But I think 28 weeks later, what people didn't love about some of the action was that it felt a little too blockbustery in that sense. I think it kind of threw out like a little bit of the intimacy of the first one. Yeah. In some parts, and some of the ending pieces of 28 weeks didn't really add up for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, what I was afraid of going into this movie is that I agree with you. I think 28 Days, it's a great horror movie. It does a lot for the zombie genre. It's like an overall entertaining film. But I think what's really exceptional about it is that it's a horror movie that really has something to say and makes a point and is emotionally powerful. And I was worried because 28 Weeks kind of isn't that. 28 Weeks is a movie that, you know, has a plot and it has like emotional moments written into the script, but it doesn't feel like there's too much of a like real beating heart behind it other than like, let's make a cool zombie movie. So I was worried with 28 Years that we were going to go more like 28 Weeks where it was just going to be like, let's just make some fucking cool zombies. And like, if that's what it was, fine. I don't think that's this though. Again, I feel like Alex Garland kind of had something to say with it. And that's something I'm always looking for in a movie, and especially with a horror movie, because I feel like it's kind of rare in horror movies to get a script where we're really saying something that's not just like about trauma. And this movie's about death, which we can get more into as we get into the third act, which I guess is a good transition into that. I would say the third act starts once we get the baby and the doctor popping out.
Yeah. The doctor, do they meet the doctor before the baby or do they
right after
the baby? Okay.
Yeah, the baby. So a zombie mom gives birth to a uninfected child, which poses so many cool questions that again aren't totally answered. But there's another movie coming out, so I'm eager, and they hook me in a lot of different ways to see another movie. But there's an uninfected child. The mother is killed. The alpha wants to get that baby back, I think. That's kind of what it seems. Yeah, he was pissed off, but I don't know if he was pissed off because Spike and his mom have been running around his like territory for all this time, or because that's his baby. You know, like are the zombies fucking, or was a pregnant lady bit? I feel like that's
a good point.
You know, that's like a cool question that they do not pose. They're like, maybe, you know, who knows?
See, the pregnant lady is where the movie lost me. Honestly, I think that once they get on the train, the alpha's still on their tail. And the infected also follow them onto the train, and then they find the pregnant woman on the train with the baby, and Jodie Comer's her character name is also Isla. So
right.
She finds the woman. She's in pain. She's about to like birth the kid, but it doesn't overreact. It doesn't try and lunge at her at all. It to me that felt like plot armor, where it just kind of hesitates and it doesn't go for lunging at Jodie or Spike or anyone really. And then Spike is just kind of hanging back on the train, and then the alpha just comes, and we already knew he was kind of coming based off of the trailer. But I think that there was just like a couple moments there, and then the kid happens. The kid comes out, and then it lunges at her. I'm like, okay, well, that was a little convenient with the timing and everything. And then they take the kid, which to me doesn't make sense because you've been 28 years in this world. You know the implications of that and the risks that it could have. I think that, he's like Garland is probably trying to say a commentary of like every life deserves a chance, or like, you know, is there something that I can do as a mother, like a maternal? I don't know if that was landing for me, but can you give me like your thoughts on it too?
So I have more thoughts about the sequence kind of like in tandem with my overall view of the movie, which again, I'm gonna bite my tongue on until we can get to the end, because I think the whole Jimmy thing is essential to my reading on it.
Okay.
But in terms of just like a plot reason, I think that the way they build the zombies in the world is that they're kind of not a traditional, like, just crazy zombie anymore. That they're almost like their own ecosystem, like an animal that fits into the world.
Okay.
And I think that if you kind of view it as you would like a coyote or something, just some kind of like rabid dog, you know, when it's in a situation where it's like giving birth, it's in like a very vulnerable position. And the movie taking the stance of like, well, they're not always just like ravenous trying to kill you. There are things that can like cripple them almost emotionally or physically, and they can like take a toll. I think that it kind of works as to look at it that way, as if like you just found like a stray dog that like is looking for help from anyone because it's in pain. But I also think Alex Garland is someone who's always writing about women. A lot of his movies have to deal with women, and a lot of the time the way that like men hurt women or oppress women in some kind of way, misogyny, sexism, however you want to put it. That's present in almost all his movies. I'm sure there's something to do with that here. I don't know what it is. I haven't gotten like a full read on it, but I don't want to throw it away as just like, that's just kind of weird, you know, like, which it is. But I think that they are saying something. And what's so tough about it is that the story's not completed. So I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if that kid's going to become an alpha. I don't know if it's just going to be a regular baby. They only have one line, which is from Dr. Kelson, who says like the beauty of the placenta or something. There's like a weird throwaway line he says where
like he wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, the baby's not infected, and he's like, it's the placenta. You know, the fucking virus didn't get to it. Yeah, it's weird. It's cool to me. I can vibe with it.
Yeah.
I understand your concern about the characters though, because it is a little strange that Spike would be like, yeah, okay, like take the baby. But I also think it would be weird if he was like, well, we got to kill that baby.
Yeah,
you
maybe
know?
not like we gotta kill it, but if you're risking infection, I also wouldn't want my mom in harm's way,
Right.
or that sense,
Right.
or if I'm the mom, I don't want my kid in harm's way, like my living kid. So I think that was more of the logic is like you see an infected, you got to put it down in my mind, like
Right.
maybe even before the birth. So that's why I was a little.
Well, you're Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't really. They could have just killed it on site before the birth even happened. Like I think with what you're saying though, there is clearly a justification for why they brought the kid and why the kid was in the rest of the movie. Yeah, maybe it'll turn out to be some hybrid. Like it could also play into 28 weeks how there is an immune person. So maybe this kid could be a human but immune to the
because it was born
virus
from an infected. Yeah, I guess we'll see. I really don't know. Well, that brings us squarely into Act 3, where we have Dr. Kelson, who is a really interesting character to me. He was a doctor in the old world who has now become sort of like a shaman, or like the closest thing to a shaman that you could get in an apocalypse, where he's someone who has really made peace with the idea of dying and treasures it. He starts saying a bunch of Latin, memento mori, remember death, right, and treasure it. And the third act of this movie really becomes about the acceptance of Jodie Comer's incoming death. And it's about how Spike has to sort of come to terms with, like, I guess the cyclical nature of the world and how people are going to pass away and there's nothing you can do about it, but there are ways that you can kind of welcome death into your life and accept it. And it's just a very, like, emotionally resonant and intelligent sequence, I thought, for a zombie movie. And I think that's, like, really what pulled at me, is that they were having a conversation about, like, what death means to people in a fucking, like, crazy zombie movie where it's just, like, usually just a lot of thrashing and blood and violence. Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, the way it kind of all comes together at the end is something that grew on me more as I sat with it. I think when I left the theater, I was, like, a little, I don't know. The more I've thought about it, though, I think it's a pretty great end. So what do you think?
Yeah, his way that he takes care of the bones and that kind of thing, that was definitely shocking at first, with how desensitized he is to death. And then there's that introduction a little earlier in the film where they're talking about, oh, we saw the doctor one time and there was bodies everywhere, and there was like 100 corpses earlier on in the outbreak.
Which, what a great image too.
It's crazy
of him with like 200 bodies in a field, just waves.
He just waves.
That's awesome.
I know. It's kind of wild that they chose to go that path, and in a good way, you know. Like, I thought that was a very striking image. And then he's also humorous about a lot of the situations where death is not as serious to him anymore. Like, he's made that peace with himself and in his soul. So he's trying to introduce that more to the people that he meets. But I thought that the way her death was it was very swift. I think for also meeting the doctor so quickly, and then she's like, "Oh, it's okay. Like, he's gonna take care of me." And then he like shoots him with a sleeping dart and that kind of thing. The only problem I had, like, survival movies, I look into more of the logic sometimes, and I know that characters are not going to specifically do something that makes sense every time. But she just met the doctor. The doctor said, "I'm going to take care of you and basically put you down in a way to put you out of your misery." And he shoots a sleeping dart at Spike. And my only gripe with that scene was, like, how does she know that she can trust him with a guy that is surrounded by bones and death, and, like, might also kill your kid if he is a psycho? So there's some stuff there that I was like, okay, but when I think about it in the larger sense, more of a
Right.
narrative crutch and more of a theme, I do embrace it more. I can throw out logic to a certain point within this
Yeah,
genre,
I
you know?
understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I think you raised some valid concerns about like the in-universe day-to-day action of the characters sometimes, where it's like in an apocalypse movie, like would you do that? You know, like that's not the smartest thing to do, or like would you trust that guy? I don't know if I really buy it. I think ultimately it's just like a subjective thing. As for me, you know, and I think I've said something akin to this on the podcast before. I'm a theme guy. Like I
Yeah.
just come from a writing world, so like I'm always looking at the meaning of scenes and the meaning of a movie over like the, I guess, whatever play by play of it, what it means like in the context of this of the actual scene. I want to know like the author intent, and that's just something I favor, and I feel like the what the movie is doing with that works for me. But I understand your concern, and I think that's valid.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's all I have to say on that. I think, yeah. So Joni Comer is, I guess it's assisted doctor assisted death. Is that or doctor assisted suicide? What's that called? There isn't like a real medical
Yeah.
term for that. But interestingly, I just was reading something about that.
Like in real world sense, or
Yeah,
in the
so
okay,
so in the UK, I think they just legalized that. I think.
a doctor assisted death.
Yeah, doctor assisted death. So
Wow.
it's like a current issue in the UK, which again I think like the movie kind of ties into a lot of like British
Oh wow.
themes and ideas and politics or whatever. So I don't know if that was coincidence, but I think it was like right around the time the movie came out, they like made the legal decision to allow that. So I think that being in the movie is especially interesting of like the conversation they're having around that and how it's like, I mean, it seems like the movie takes the stance that they're pretty in favor of such a thing. Okay, yeah, cool. Like I don't want to get into like the personal politics of it, but I do think that a movie that's kind of talking about real world politics again in a zombie movie is cool. I like that. I like that this movie has something to say. It means something. It's having a conversation. These are just all things that I really look for in any movie, and I think it being a horror zombie movie just elevates it for me.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think the themes of this film are really striking and very concrete. I think Garland and Boyle always go for the heart of the issue more than just making your blockbuster in that kind of sense. Like the original 28 Days was much less of a um, blockbuster. It was really just focused on why are we choosing to stay with these people out of the entire apocalypse and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
they really flipped the genre on its head, and like you said, like it's really added up to the rest of the genre since then.
Right.
But yeah, so going into the final pieces of the movie, give me your breakdown of Jimmy. Like let's go into the Jimmy conversation, because I have gripes with Jimmy, but like yeah, go ahead.
So many people have gripes with Jimmy, and I get it. I totally understand why you have gripes with Jimmy. It does nothing but excite me. This whole Jimmy sequence. So if you need a recap, audience, the opening of this film, I will admit I missed the first couple minutes. I got to the theater late. The only thing I saw of the opening is once young Jimmy actually gets to the church with his father. I missed the Teletubby raid at the start. I was informed later of what happened. And I think it's essential. So I'm upset that I didn't see it visually, but I think I got what is needed from that scene. We see this opening that's like way back when, like more 28 Days timeline.
It's the beginning of
the start of the outbreak, like day one. And we have this young boy who is watching Teletubbies on the TV. There's like hurried, you know what, you describe it because I didn't see it.
Yeah. So I mean, the woman is trying to keep this group of kids calm, and I think they're aware of the outbreak at that point, but now it's come to their doorstep, and they're just trying to lock them in a room safe, and the infected are coming in. They're chewing on everybody else in the house except for the kids, and then Jimmy just kind of sees it all hit the fan. He basically escapes the house. That's really all you missed.
Right.
But there is the imagery of the TV and the significance of the jumpsuits, and that it's kind of a plant early on, because that was his only impression of the real world in the beginning, which I think was cool. So he gets to the church and go to church.
So he gets to the church. His father basically says it's a day of reckoning. It's like the rapture essentially, and that he shouldn't be afraid. He lets himself get eaten by the zombies, or I guess turned into an infected. But Jimmy hides in a grate under the floor. And then we cut to the movie. And once we get to the movie, I thought, is Aaron Taylor Johnson that kid? Then I was
Yeah.
like, no, it's not him. And then I thought maybe it was Dr. Kelson was that kid. It's not him either. Throughout the movie, there's a lot of Jimmy imagery, which sounds bizarre and stupid, but I think it's really eerie and foreboding. Maybe the first zombie they come across is a man that has been hung from the ceiling by his feet and left there for the infected to get, and the word Jimmy's carved into his stomach. They don't never comes up, like, they don't explain what the fuck that was, or we don't get an explanation by the end of the movie of what happened there, and we don't know for the movie who did that until the very end. There's graffiti that we see of I think it's like a Bible verse. It's something that it reminded me of the end is extremely fucking nigh sign from 28 Days, where it's like religious sentiment that's kind of like corrupted by like modern human apocalypse talk. So it says like Jimmy is coming with the clouds or something. It feels like a religious cult is kind of how it's presented. And I thought that we were going to see that cult. And then at the very end of the movie, Spike has completed his emotional character arc. He's sort of become a man. It's been this coming of age story for him. And he's getting chased by a couple zombies. It looks a little dire. It's a little scary. And then Jimmy shows up. Adult Jimmy shows up. He's got long blonde hair. He's wearing a tracksuit, and he's with a whole bunch of other people that are also have really long blonde hair and have tracksuits on and poles and stabs. And then it breaks into a literal fucking Power Rangers fight. Yeah. And they do backflips off the cliff. It is a wild tonal shift. They are like stabbing and like decapitating zombies, and it's playing. I think the Power Rangers theme song is playing, or it's playing some kind of like crazy kids music. Yeah, and then he says, all right, let's be pals. And then it cuts to black. And it's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
So I want you to tell me what you thought about it, and then I'll tell you my interpretation of what it is, because it really excites me the way I'm reading it.
No, yeah, it's an exciting scene. I just think that it went like tonally off a cliff from the original two movies. Like I think that the first movie has some really great parts of like it's realism. There's like, even though this is a sci-fi movie, it has its own set of limitations, and for that sequence it felt like it just completely absolved any limitations. And now we're doing kung fu and we're throwing chains at people and they're wearing blonde hair. Like it just didn't seem like I can condone a risk and a gamble where they took one, and I think it's a big bold swing by Danny Boyle, and there's very few directors that could pull off something like this. He's surely one of them with the energy that he brings to his work, but with the way that it was leading, it just felt like pretty over the top. And we have Jack O'Connell who plays Jimmy. Yeah. So I was like, what? He's in the movie now?
Yeah. Whoa,
and I heard
Jack
he was in the
O'Connell.
movie, and I'm like, where is he now? He's in the last 5 minutes. Yeah. So, and then after the theater, after I left, I was like, what? There's two more parts to this? So that's kind of, I was getting the experience as it was happening. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly symbolism to me, but I think it's also, it can also be true that there's meaning in the symbolism, but it doesn't necessarily fit the bill on the whole movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go into my theme talk now,
Okay.
Right. So how I read this ending is very it's important to kind of understand the way that I read the rest of the movie, which is that the movie's sort of about two things. It's about death, and it's about like growing up and like a coming of age story. And I think the common theme between those two things is moving on, and this idea of just kind of like, moving on, growing up, letting the dead die, whatever, like having that transition in the next phase of life. And Spike goes through both of those things in this movie. He's a very innocent kid at the start, and then he becomes a man by the end of the movie. It's a very like understandable classic hero's journey character arc. I think the other thing that's crazy about this movie that I thought about is that this goes back to that pregnant zombie situation that I didn't want to quite hark on yet, is that I don't think that this movie makes a conceited effort at any point to make you think that any character in the movie is a bad person, and that includes the zombies. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson has flaws, and Eric has flaws, but at no point are you meant to believe that they're like evil people. And it does a really good job of making it seem like the zombies are just animals. Like they don't have ill intent. It's just they're surviving. And like you're going on their land. They're like defending their family and their pack, right? None of the people are evil. There's no evil, bad Walking Dead faction out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the end of this movie, and there's a character who is wearing an upside-down crucifix, very closely resembles Jimmy Savile or Seville, I think is is the British icon who was revealed to be a pedophile and like a renowned sex offender after his death. And what it spoke to me as is, oh, there's an evil character now. Look, we've had evil enter this movie, and the evil character is someone who was unable to move on. It's like the exact foil to the main character. He's someone that's obsessed with kids television. He dresses like a British pop icon. He, is doing kung fu moves, but he's got an upside down crucifix on his neck, and we know something's up with him. Like we know this guy's fucked. And because he carved his name into a guy and fed him the zombies. So we know that he's evil. And I'm just loving what that's setting up for me. I think it's really, really interesting as to like what we're going to get from this character in the coming movie. So it is a tonal whiplash. It's kind of nuts, but I think it functions as a transition into the movie that we're going to get in January. And I don't think it totally ruins the movie preceding it for me.
But then do you think that it's a little dependent on the fact that there's a subsequent movie, like a sequel?
Yes, I think it's a cliffhanger ending, so I get what you mean, that it's like if you just see this movie for what it is, the Jimmy thing doesn't resolve. But I think the Jimmy thing is going to be, it's going to be the thematic challenge to what Spike went through in this movie. I think Spike's arc is clear and clean. If you cut the movie when he's making the fish, it's a full story. I have no complaints. I think the introduction of Jimmy serves as like a promise to the audience that the second movie, this is what it's going to be about. And I could be totally wrong. I mean, we have a couple months to wait until we see it, and I could be so off. But
no, I think you're onto something there. I think it probably came across clearer to you in that moment than it did for me. But I think that's a totally fair conclusion to draw, and that kind of thing too. With the sequels coming up too, that the next part is called the Bone Temple. So we saw the Bone Temple, but now there might be an expansion backstory of that kind of thing if they're going to title it that way. But do you think there's been an 18-year gap since 28 Weeks Later? Do you think that they're just jumping on a franchise IP at this point? Do you think that starving an audience for 18 years and then now doing back-to-back parts, is that smart? Even though the filmmakers are super savvy, I love all of their work, but do you think it's a little self-serving, I guess, or like box office serving?
It depends on your like how you view Garland, I think.
Okay.
Because I opened very plainly, I'm a big Alex Garland head. I love the guy. I think he writes interesting stuff. And generally speaking, other than his film Men, I think this guy knows what he's doing. So I feel like we wouldn't be breaking into a 3-movie trilogy with Danny Boyle attached as a producer throughout, Alex Garland writing all 3 of the screenplays as far as I know. Yeah. And Danny Boyle, I think, coming back for the 3rd if it gets funded, if this one does well enough. I don't think they do that for money. These guys, I don't know them. I've never had a conversation with these people. I've never seen them in real life. I've only seen interviews and read their work. But I don't know. I just feel like they have too much to say. This movie felt like it was stuffed with too much meaning to be like a box office movie. To me, it feels like, again, like I was saying, that there's a point behind this. And I don't think you make one movie that has like a really strong theme and point and message and then make 2 blockbuster, just nothing shithole movies.
No, I think that's fair. Yeah. And it's so far it's grossed over $103 million against its $60 million budget. So I think it's already poised statistically to do well for a sequel. The reviews have been split on this movie, but I think that it's going to get a 3rd part, and if the same creators are attached, then it deserves a 3rd part. As long as Boyle or Garland don't bail, I think I'm in for it. Otherwise, it's just going to be a studio machine garbage 3rd part. Even the 2nd part could be really sharp, and then if it gets in the wrong hands for the 3rd part, it could just feel like a Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Well, I gotta be honest, man. I'm worried about the director for the second one. I've never seen her work, but I only know
Oh,
that
okay.
she's
So it's not
directed.
Boyle.
No, it's not Boyle
Oh, okay.
for part 2. It is the director of the Marvels. I'm forgetting her name.
Oh,
Say it again. Nia DaCosta.
okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't seen the Marvels. I've only heard things. As I opened with, Danny Boyle's direction was a huge part of what made this movie good to me.
Yeah.
So having someone whose track record isn't great, I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure that she wasn't brought on without any trust or anything. I'm sure she's got something interesting to do here. But it does concern me. I'm a little worried. I'm cautiously pessimistic about it, I think is the right way to go. I'm going to expect that it's like, nah, it's going to suck. And then hopefully I'll be like, nice, it was good. But we'll see.
One more thing, too. There was a lot of speculation about Cillian Murphy being in this film. He was only an executive producer.
Yeah.
I was a little disgruntled. I guess, I was okay with him not being in it because it's a jump at first. Boyle has said that he's going to be in the second or third part.
That he's confirmed to be in the next one, right?
Yeah, and the whole Jimmy plot line, I thought it was Jim, like his character Jim. So I thought he was showing up, or he would have a cliffhanger moment and find our guy.
Yep.
But do you think that his character, like how do you perceive his character interacts with the rest? Do you think he's gonna be in the city? Any predictions?
Know. I really don't know, because I don't see how Jim will tie into the arc that Spike is on right now. And like this movie that I have in my head, the second movie, I don't know how Cillian Murphy is going to play a role in it. I think it's cool they're bringing him back. I mean, we got Best Actor winner Cillian Murphy coming back. He's a great character. Jim's very likable in the movie. Cillian Murphy's a great actor. I'm sure he'll be good in this. I have really no idea what he's going to be doing in it, though. And I also don't know, I don't totally know how I feel about him coming back. Because that, to me, is the only thing that, like you were talking about, that feels very, like, kind of corporate, of, like, blockbuster movie. It feels like, oh, we're bringing him back. Yeah. Like, you remember Jim from 30 years ago? He's coming back, baby. Here he comes. It's a little strange. It feels like a different thing than the movie that I watched. But, I mean, again, I got faith in these people. Maybe too much faith. Maybe they'll blow it. But I'm going to hope that they do something cool with him. Yeah.
So. I'm in for any zombie genre stuff. But I'm interested. I think Danny's done a really great job. I still loved everything that he did with this movie. The bullet time rig with the iPhone. The photography just alone is awesome. The action, I felt every blow that was in the bow and arrows, or just the lunges from the infected. Like, everything just felt so succinct and energized that he just has that with all of his work. I really love that stuff.
When you're watching a movie and you're like, there's a chase scene going on and you kind of feel it like in your toes. Of like, fuck, it's behind me. Like, I had that a couple of times in this movie. I think the filmmaking here with like zombies being 10 feet behind you, sprinting at you, is scary. It's a scary movie, man. Yeah. I mean, I have a little bit of like childhood trauma with 28 Days because I saw it way too young when I was like 12. And then I've been terrified to go back to it, but I had to revisit it before I saw this one. Sort of was able to overcome the fear. But I'm lying, dude, if it doesn't freak me out. If I don't leave either of these movies when I go home and I'm laying there in bed at night a little bit, I get a little creeped out, dude. Yeah. Just thinking about, like, looking out the window and seeing it's fucking scary. Yeah. But whatever. I mean, I'm a little boy at heart, I guess.
No, dude. I mean, they're terrifying. Yeah, like you said, it reinvigorated the zombie genre. I mean, it turned very slow moving, like I don't know, Herman Munster looking guys into very menacing, like raging things that were on a warpath. Like the Dawn of the Dead Zack Snyder movie. I love that movie too. Like it's not a great movie, but it's something that I can turn on, and it's like a comfort movie in a way for a horror thing. But same thing, energized zombies, that kind of stuff. Walking Dead kind of returned to a little bit of the classic stuff.
Then you got like World War Z.
World War Z is great too. Yeah. So I mean, this has clearly had an impact. I think it also gives another heartbeat to the zombie genre a little bit. Like, World War Z was the last one that I can remember that I really enjoyed that was in theaters. And I mean, Train to Busan was actually really good too.
Train to Busan is very good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
But okay, so give me your final score on final thoughts.
So yeah, man, I'm this is my most, I guess, like, jittery score that I'm ever going to give on here, probably. So when I came out of this movie, a lot of the revelations that I had about the theme were not in there yet. So my initial score on this movie was a 7. I thought it was really entertaining. Yeah. I thought there was cool stuff in it. The camera work was great. The direction I loved. I think the acting's really good, whatever. And that was pretty much as far as I went with it. I went, yeah, that was cool. I'll watch another one. And I walked out. The more I've thought about this movie, I think that it's now firmly an 8, I could say. And I think that if I watched it again, it might even be a 9. I'm really positive on this movie. I know you're not as positive as I am, but yeah. I think everyone, you should check this out. If you like zombies, you should check this out. Any of Danny Boyle's previous work. Damn, it is a dark and stormy night here in the Culture Wave office. I don't know if you're going to pick up any of these fucking thunder clashes, but we're really setting like the vibe in here. We're talking about a scary movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, not to get sidetracked. Yeah, this is really good. You should watch this movie. Everybody check this movie out.
Yeah, like you were saying, too, I think, well, you've honestly given me a little bit more open-mindedness to it. I think anytime I go into a sequel, I have a specific amount of expectations with a movie. This movie did veer from a little bit of those expectations, specifically in the second half. The first half, I was fully hooked. I was fully immersed. I loved where we were going. I loved the world building. I loved how, our kid is experiencing the world for the first time. He's experiencing the green and the lusciousness, but also the viciousness with the animalistic stuff that you were talking about. Like, this is their turf. There's the alpha. There's the territorial stuff. I really like all that. And then I just felt that some of the story was losing me a little bit. There was some plot holes, but it wasn't to the point where I would say that this is a bad movie by any means. I think it is still a very entertaining movie. It's full of energy. It's very unique. You're not going to see other blockbuster movies juxtaposing documentary footage with old classic movies, with shooting on iPhone and editing fast. Like, there's only very few directors that will pull that off. Edgar Wright is another one of my favorite English directors, but Danny has had a very storied career. Not as many movies as a lot of other people, but still very sharp and all of his stuff. So for me, I will give this movie like a 6.5, just because I think that there needs to be a little bit more evening out in the sequel. And then I think if the sequel adds a little bit more flavor to Jimmy, I can bump my score on the first part.
I see. So your enjoyment of the first movie is contingent on how the second movie explores what the first one sets up.
Yeah, it's this exactly. I think the first one is just like when Jimmy came around, I was checked out. I think it was so out of left field. For me, I think, like I said, it's a gamble. I think it's gonna work for some people, and then the other half, it's not. So, but I don't think that kills the movie. I just think it checks me out a little bit from the rest of it. But I think that it's still an enjoyable watch. But yeah,
sweet. I can't.
I think it's fair. But I mean, and you had very good points too. But do you have any other final thoughts too on the film?
That's all I got. I think I don't think there's any world where you could call this a bad movie. I think you could have problems with it, and that's totally valid. But I hope that we get these 2 next ones. I think we're confirmed to get at least the second one. So I want to see how this wraps up. I will be there in those theaters. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's cool how it's a divisive movie for some people because of the subjectivity of it in that sense. But I'm interested to hear what everyone else's thoughts were on the movie. Like we were saying, there's just so many different interpretations of it. Some people really hate this movie, which I don't. But there's some people who also really love the movie. So I want to hear more opinions on it in the comments. I want to have an ongoing discussion about this. Maybe there are some things that you could bring to fruition in my head that went over my head when I first watched it. But thank you guys for tuning into this episode. If you can find us on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, you can find all of our handles below us. We are on pace for 1,000 subscribers still on YouTube, and we're trying to bump up to 1,500 followers on Instagram. We got a lot of cool stuff coming. We're a couple more interviews in, and then we have a couple more big movies coming in July. We got Superman coming. We got a lot of good TV coming up too. We're excited to bring you more content. So hit that subscribe button. Be sure to follow us on all of our platforms. This has been another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. Just signing off. I'm Zach Miller.
I've been Sean Villa.
And we'll see you next time.
This is The Culture.